He said, we get him to the elevator and he goes, where's my Bible? I'm not going upstairs without my Bible. And he said, all the horror convention people are like, what? And he said,
Ozzy Osbourne said that? Where's my
Yes.
Bible? The story of Ozzy Osbourne.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how that went.
Ozzy is somebody that myself and most Christians would think is somebody completely off
Yeah, and too far gone, maybe.
to the gospel. Yes. And I mean, he's literally the Prince of Darkness. That's what he's called. And
Bites bats' heads off or something, or chickens' heads. I can't remember.
it was a bat. No, biting the chicken off. That's what everybody was doing with this Minecraft movie that came out. But yeah, so Ozzy, he's been retired for years. He's going to be doing his final concert in the UK. I think it's next month. And, he was, again, somebody that I'm just like, I'm never going to have an opportunity to meet. Now, conventions like Comic Cons, conventions and whatnot, since COVID, have blown up. Everything, on one hand, it's like double or triple the cost to meet individuals. At the same time, it's opened the door for so many more people. Like, if you'd have ever told me Ron Howard and Mel Gibson would do a convention this year, I'd been like, are you out of your mind?
I mean, those are the top of the top.
Well, and I asked Ron, because I got about 30 minutes with Ron.
Wow.
And a friend of mine set up a private signing. He sent a bunch of stuff, and he was like, that'll give you a great opportunity to just talk with Ron.
Wow.
And it was truly incredible. Ron is just,
Wow.
he was such a humble guy, just very open to talk. And we also, besides the gospel, we also talked about Andy Griffith, Happy Days and stuff. And I did ask him, I said, what made you decide to do a convention? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
And he said, I'll just tell you why. It's too good of money to turn down. He said, my daughter's done a few. She was like, Dad, I think you'd really enjoy it, because he said, I've always appreciated my fans. He said, that's never been something that got on my nerves. And I can tell you that is true. He's always had a great reputation.
Okay.
And he said, I enjoy meeting fans. I also enjoy making money. I enjoy traveling with my family, because his daughter was at the same convention. He said, so why not make money, meet fans, and be with my family? I said, exactly. It's a win-win for everybody. So Ozzy got announced to do a convention 2 years ago. And I remember when they announced it, just everybody was just like, in the autograph world was like, you're kidding me. One of the biggest rock stars in the world is going to sit down at a convention and sign autographs.
Especially with his kind of brain. And
yeah. And so, I mean, people flew from all over the country. I mean, all over the world to come to, it was right outside of Philadelphia. And the way they had it set up is you bought a ticket into the event. Then you bought an Osbourne family package that just got you into the room where they were. And then you still individually had to pay to get up to them. And I was expecting to be herded through like cattle. Like, that was just my expectation going in. And that's how it is sometimes. No. Ozzy took his time with everybody.
Wow.
He was so kind. He was sitting there in this giant like throne chair. It honestly looked pretty cool. And he shook everybody's hand. Hi, what's your name? Just being very personal.
That's cool.
Well, he had done an interview, and it had been like 5 years prior. And they asked him, where do you stand spiritually? And he said, I consider myself a Christian, which I was like, wouldn't have expected that. Even though you and I both know, just because someone says they're a Christian doesn't mean they are. But I'm like, for somebody to not just say, I believe in God, or I'm spiritual, or I'm Catholic, Ozzy Osbourne saying I'm a Christian. Yep. Interesting. And he said, and so the interviewer said, do you read the Bible? And he said, I wish I could. My brain is pretty fried. I'm sure that's a big shocker. He said, and it's just written in a language I can't understand. I really would love to read it and study it more. And so I got him a New Believers study Bible, and had his name put on the cover, which that was pretty funny. The bookstore where I got that done at, it's a Bible bookstore in Knoxville, and they'll announce over the intercom when your Bible's ready. Now, they should have said, Mr. Novak, your order's ready. No. Ozzy Osbourne, your Bible is ready. When I tell you,
way.
There were like two guys
you could hear
standing there,
drop.
and I said, and they were like, "Is he here?" I said, "No." They were like Ozzy Osbourne. Yeah. I'm like, yes, that's who this is going for. Oh, it was so incredibly. It was awkward, because in that moment, it's just like, Wait, you're taking him up. I was like, it's too much to get into right now. I'm trying to get to the airport because I do everything last minute. So I referenced that interview. And he said, yes, I can understand it. And it's written in Old English. I said, well, look at this. So we were probably the distance of you and me across the table. He had a big table. So I lean across and I hand him his Bible. And it's got my name on it. And he's showing his manager, and his manager, I couldn't tell how his manager took it. It was just kind of indifferent. And he opens it up, and he's like, well, I can, the font is big enough. And he immediately turned in the back towards the Gospels. And he's like, oh, this actually makes sense. Thank you. And I was, you're so welcome. I really love you. And, well, thank you so much. Signs, and keeps going. And I met his whole family, Jack, Sharon, and Kelly. They were all there.
The wife was there and stuff? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Sharon was nice. She wasn't overly personal.
Yeah, of course.
Kelly, same. Nice, not overly personal. Jack was great.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very nice. He was like writing down on a piece of paper a bunch of theologies he had been looking at.
Wow.
And he said, why don't you research these? Because this is what I've been looking at. And then if you ever see me again, we'll compare notes. And I said, sounds great. And what he didn't know is I was going to see him in 2 weeks because it's October. So there's horror conventions all over the place then. There was a horror event in Lexington, Kentucky, and he was going to be there. Got a photo with the whole family together and flew home. Well, I kept debating, and I listened to the podcast that Jack had written down and everything, and I was like, I don't know how to approach Jack because the human side of me, just like we had talked about, where we worry what people are going to think, I was like, he's going to think I'm stalking him, following him to literally the next event he's going to. Well, I didn't have to approach Jack. Jack approached me. And I was wearing the same jacket now that I was when I met Ozzy and that day, and it says love God, love people on the back. He walks up to me, he says, can I ask you a silly question? And I said, sure. Were you in Philly 2 weeks ago? I said, I was. Come over to my table, I got a story for you. I said,
this is Jack?
yes, actually. We are human beings, we're going to meet each other.
Exactly.
Which it shows the humbleness of Ozzy.
That is amazing.
He said Dad's exhausted, we're taking him up to his room because it was at a casino, so his hotel suite was upstairs. He said we get him to the elevator and he goes, where's my Bible? I'm not going upstairs without my Bible. And he said, all the horror convention people are like, what? And he said, I told him, Dad, because Ozzy was in another room all to himself. And he said, Dad, it's in your autograph room. It's already locked up. We'll get it tomorrow. No, you're going to get it now. And he goes, well, Dad, they'll have to go back downstairs and unlock it. I'll wait.
Wow.
Okay. So he said, we go down there, and he said, the convention people are like, is he losing his mind? Like, did he say Bible? And he said, it's a long story, but yes. So he said, we go into the autograph room.
Goodness.
There, he said, there's your gift bag, and the Bible was sitting on top on the table. He said, so we grab the Bible, we take it up, and he goes, there was another book and a letter. Where's that? So we go back down, and because the way it was is he signed autographs on Friday, he took Saturday off and did it again on Sunday. So he told Jack, he said, I wanted to look at that on Saturday when I'm sitting up in my hotel room all alone. And so he said, we bring it to him, and he said, and Dad, I was like, are you happy? Yes, I am now. And he said, so we went upstairs. He said the next day at lunch, Ozzy, he was like, did you see my beautiful Bible? And he said, we were like, yeah, we did that. That's beautiful. And then Kelly was like, I got something similar. And he said, we just all started talking about what you'd given us. Yeah. And he said, so just know, the Osbourne family sitting around the table, we're talking about where you shared the gospel with us. He didn't say the gospel. He said, just share Jesus with us. And he said, I don't know about the rest of my family. I looked at everybody's letter. I love that it was an individual letter. It was not copy and pasted. Like you hand wrote something individually for each of us. That means a lot to me.
Wow.
And he said, everybody that's come to my dad's house since the event, he said, they're like, hey, how did the convention go? And he said, he'll go, I got the most beautiful gift. Sharon, go get my Bible. And because he said it's sitting on his bedside table.
Wow.
And he said, Sharon will go get the Bible and he'll show it to whoever comes over to the house. Yeah. And he said, I just want you to know, he said, my dad doesn't keep many gifts. He's gotten a lot of gifts through the years, and he said, and it's not that he doesn't appreciate it, it's just we don't have room for it.
Right.
And he said half the stuff is junk. He said, but he said, I just want you to know that Bible's on his bedside table, and everybody that walks through the house has to see the Bible with his name on it that he can understand.
Wow.
So, and I'm just standing as he's talking. There's tears in my eyes.
Of course.
I was like, thank you, Jack. And
wow.
yeah. So again, it's just goes to show some of the people that you see what they look like, the life they've lived, and it's like, they'd never be open. Some of those people realize more than anything, this is what I need.
Absolutely.
Because all the things of this world left me empty, but this is what will satisfy. This is what's eternal. This is what will save our soul.